very good evening and welcome to the Fourth Estate, Charles Mangushampagi. And tonight, we'll wade into the murky waters of discussing intrigues around State House, the politicking that exploded over the last 7 days on social media, the subject of the attack, Minister for the Presidency Frank Tumwebaze, and the counter-arguments we have seen, dragging in all sorts of complaints about corruption, procurement gone amiss, and so many other things. We'll be attempting over the next 1 hour to discuss those issues. Let me start with my colleague, Chris Obore. You spent the whole of last week, almost the whole of last week in TSO, training journalists.
Social accountability.
You're doing social accountability?
Reporting, yeah. That's what I was doing. And that's the home. I'm always never afraid to say, that is where I come from. And then when I'm with my elder, I feel okay. I wish we get many Onapitos.
I hope you are warming up.
So let me
one of the things I will never do at this period of time to immerse myself in that politics. I will never. But I talked about the bad politics in Teso. Especially I told you leaders who tell Teso that we love President Museveni, I'm close to Museveni, threatening people in the village. I told them, those who claim to love Museveni, leave them, let them go and wash his shoes. Send leaders who go and bargain and negotiate with the president, not those who love the president. President has got a lot of people who love him. So if you send also from Muteso to love him, let them go to Rakitora and wash his shoes, clean the plates.
Chris, actually what you're saying, there was an interesting debate among NRM youth actually, over the bitterly contested race for Unsa president.
I was there.
Yes, Uganda National Student Association president. And they said the person closest to the president took the day. And they showed how close to the president helps. And I was saying, do you really need to be close to the president, or you need to have good ideas for the young people?
And that was the message I put in Teso, that whoever claims, even those in the cabinet and parliament, that we are the ones known, okay, those who love the president requires people who amuse him at home when he's tired. Go home and sit with him. Allow other people to be leaders, to go and negotiate with him.
Okay, let me introduce Onapito Ekomoloit. He served in State House. Ona served in State House in a very senior
and left with a clean record.
Once upon a time.
Once upon a time. A very senior journalist.
I'm sorry, Charles, but he left without any scandal of a procurement.
Corporate Affairs Director of Nairobi Breweries, SFB Mela.
To post my scandals on social media.
And Morrison Rakakamba, one of the most activists on social media and one of the most critical analysts, policy analysts, is Morrison Rakakamba. He is a presidential assistant in charge of research. Morrison, very nice to have you.
Thank you, Charles.
We'll be discussing a lot of those things on social media and what has been happening and how it's being used in the politics over the next 1 hour. Let me just mention also that, like Chris, I spent the whole of, almost the whole of last week in the Rwenzori sub-region in Kasese. That discussion we touched on briefly called the Kasunga series of discussions. And we had the cultural leaders of the Bamba Babwise, the cultural leader of the Bakonjo, and people from all the 7 districts in the region discussing issues that affect the region. And of course, someone jumped up and said, don't attack the president. And I asked them, I said, if you don't want people to discuss the president, who do you want them to discuss if he controls the distribution of resources?
And I wanted us to discuss that effort by Toro and the, what are the districts? Toro
it's the former Toro sub-region, but now Kasese, Kabarole, Kienjojo, Kamwenge, Chegegwa, Ntoroko, and Bundibujo.
I wanted us to discuss it on the Fourth Estate because for me, those are initiatives that have meaning in this country, but somehow you don't discuss it here. I don't know whose interests you serve though, I don't know. Or you think Toro, Rwenzori region is too far from Kampala to be talked about on NTV. I don't know.
Toro region has survived by not getting handouts. So it's been surviving on its own. Let me start with Napito on this question. We have seen an explosion of social media rumor and intrigue. It started with an allegation that Frank Tumwebaze had been sent on forced leave when he actually took leave, and then that was countered. The letters started emerging, all of them on social media, because mainstream media has been trying to run away. What do you think, from your experience as a journalist working with the president, what fuels these kinds of things? Because the latest is an assault on Minister Biandala. Mukono Katose has come in, the standard gauge railway has come in, lots of things have come in. A lot of this dirty linen flying around social media.
Well, Morris is here, is incumbent in terms of working with the president. I'm retired, so to say. I think we are into interesting political times. Of course, Uganda is not living in isolation of the social media bliss across the world. I guess our people are catching up. And it's a very safe way of attacking your opponents, you know? Because you can, some guys I think are faceless. Some of the postings you can be fair anonymous. Others also, I mean, they find it much more easier than giving an interview in the traditional media style. You call a press conference, there is no cost, you're just seated at your computer. But I'm surprised. I know Frank is someone who has earned his stripes. He was working with the president maybe long before I even joined State House. And I think he's worked right from the grassroots as RDC, a youth leader. So if he's being targeted, then I'm fairly surprised.
Is this a normal...
He looks someone who is really doing the right things for NRM. But
for NRM, for the president. All of them seem to claim to be fighting
for both.
For NRM.
So, but I really can't tell that I know the details of any personal fights he has. I know about what I read in the newspapers about the Katusi Road. He was involved in the tendering process or the informal discussions leading to the tendering. So it's not perhaps surprising that these rumors are there. But I was of course surprised that people were imagining he could be on suspension. I don't think that's the way the president works anyway.
What normally drives something like this, Honor, from your experience? What drives, when the fighting is so close to the palace, what normally would drive such a kind of ferocious fight?
Again, I must say things have changed. I mean, even since Chankwanza, I think we are into a new dispensation in terms of NRM politics. Since the Mbabasi saga came on board, I can't speak in terms of what was happening during my time. I think there is now new dynamics. Maybe Morris, I really pass on the mantle to him to enlighten us on that. I don't want to claim to know what's happening.
Morrison, you're in charge of research in the office of the president. And when we see a fight like this, if you remove the surrogates who are punching away, even as we discuss now, who are finding and mining for documents, mining for information, you have two senior ministers through surrogates drawing daggers against one another. Is everything in order around President Museveni, especially at this stage?
What I can tell viewers is that everything is at ease. And I mean, I think this is an era of open government. And through social media, you see this avalanche of information and discussion. And I'm one of the believers that information stimulates imagination and it makes people compare things and analyze, but also engage officialdom. But I have been, of course, monitoring social media and all these other media spaces. But you could see, you know, an increasing tendency towards illogical discussions, towards largely targeted and you know, targeted discussions and that and throwing of rotten eggs, you know, and you get this sense that you now have maybe a cartel of mercenaries from different sides that are fighting political wars, you know, throwing that eggs at each other, and through that, what is suffering is actually, you know, actual fundamental debates, for instance, on public policy.
But you can't run away from the fact that this is no ordinary throwing of rotten eggs. This is at the core. You have two of the most senior ministers.
Yes.
The Minister for Transport with the Minister for the Presidency. If they are the subject of the egg throwing, it means something is wrong somewhere.
No. What I can really say is that, I mean, for presidency from the presidency perspective, you realize that the Minister for Presidency, Honorable Frank Tumwebaze, since he took over office, he has been really a very decisive minister. He has been very clear on taking decisions, that some are hard decisions, but he, you know, he makes those decisions. And I think if you look at, as a minister for Kampala also, I think he has made things happen. And I think on doing that, certainly you earn kudos from some spaces. You could inadvertently step on toes of some other groups that have some vested interests. You know the history of, for instance, of Kampala City. And even when you look at the history of other cities in the world, you remember Gotham City, which is actually New York. If you look at its history, the people who used to be assassinated and, first of all, character assassinated or eliminated, killed, were actually were city planners, were city policy makers, because they would make a choice and say, we don't want a park here, we don't want these apartments here. So if you have invested the mortgages and you have to shift, so there was a problem. So I think the kind of space that Honorable Frank has occupied and his style of politics, of making decisions without fear or favor.
His abrasiveness, people call it.
I mean,
people call it his overzealous.
His decisiveness, in my view, his ability to take decisions that he believes are right and in line with the public policy, I think have earned him. And I think it's quite of a shift from, you know, public officials who take time to make certain decisions.
We'll come to the discussion about
the
allegations about corruption involved in all this as the center of this discussion, especially when it comes to the Mukono Katosi Road. But Chris, most often I want to rely on Chris to do the analysis, the political and policy analysis, because he's a student of public policy, but he's also has been a very critical observer and commentator on these developments, especially what you're talking about. Chris, people look at Frank and say, Frank has been this guy with so much zeal, and yes, like Morrison said, that earns him enemies, but also earns him some kudos from certain spaces. What do you make of this avalanche of a house on fire, someone would say, and that house is around President Yoweri Museveni's cabinet, or is President Museveni's cabinet?
It is true, by virtue of what position he occupies now, Frank should not be shocked by the fact that he has all these things coming against him. True. I'm very much concerned about why, and possibly what would be the likely implication of this kind of arrangement. Like Connor says, Frank has come a long way in Mbara University. First met him in 2001 in Mbale. Frank, by his very nature, he expresses himself. You can like him, you can hate him.
He's Frank.
But all of us, all of us have the good and the bad side of us. But to look at somebody from a negative only becomes a problem. But here is a big picture. And I've kept repeating on this show. The mindset in our country is a cost worry, especially a political mindset in our country. We are focused on economic growth. While we are building roads, we are building hospitals, we are decaying morally. So the roads are coming up with no accompanying value system. So the value system now is, how was with Frank in Mbara University? How come he's not the Minister of Presidency? And that will be horrible. We're actually persecuting success. So it will go beyond politics to an individual level. If you go to a village, Charles, and you build a house for your mother, how come it is Charles's mother sleeping in a Mabati house? So the villagers will also persecute your mother. That's how dangerous this kind of thing is. You have seen the actions of the NRM youth, some of whom we hosted here. They are running from one camp to another, valueless. The only value is who pays me.
I thought you are going to say you are running from one car to another.
One car to another car. What are they picking? They are picking money, immediate gratification. What I talked the other time, present-orientedness, as opposed to future-orientedness. We have lost it all. But so I am building it. I'm building that point to that. So when we see that happening, you are likely to see that now coming up. Increasingly, there are going to be mercenaries, there are going to be armies of people who are ready to do anything to Napito. Simply because it's Corporate Affairs Director, SAB Miller. Why on Napito? And unemployment is increasing. Now, it's even easier today. Your so-called conventional media, forget it. It has lost its plot long ago. Because now everybody is a reporter and editor of their own on Facebook. So what do? Just meet Milton Berakakamba, or wherever he meets you, 100,000, you posted this, it is posted. No, Angusha is pedophile. You sort it. How did it come? One person just said it. There's no more thinking, because we don't have that rallying value philosophy. Now, in NRM itself, their internal tension is that party. People are struggling. So when you succeed in NRM, your likely opponents will not be FDC, will not be UPC. Your opponents are within NRM. Because everybody is struggling to catch the ear of the king.
Thank you
Just,
for
I wanted
that,
to just add a little on the
that's where the
NRM.
problem is,
Yes, the
because
problem is-
it is the core of the internal fight.
And I think
Yes.
I indicated this at the height of the Mbabasi, okay, when Mbabasi was knocked out, so to say, that I didn't see that as the end of the problem in terms of the fight within NRM. While the president was speaking in Soroti, he said we now have a government of the children. But at the same time,
That was last week during
yeah,
the,
at the same time, you have fathers and grandfathers who are with him. I don't think they are all happy with this government of the children. They may not be saying it. They might have been in Chankwanzi. They might have been in the State House meetings in Nambole. But quietly, they are not necessarily with their mama, but I don't think they are all happy with the government of the children. The president says for him he's a consultant. For them, they feel maybe they are completely out. They are not. They can't even be consultants. These children. So where are they? so people have egos. So Frank represents or is in the group of the government of the children. So I'm sure the elders, some of them may not be excited.
They
But
want,
does it appear like other children are fighting him?
So it's not possible. Other children also involved.
no, other children can be instigated to fight him.
but if it comes at this, and none of you guys can pick this up, if it comes at a time like this, President Museveni is trying to win his official 5th term in office, 2016. In total, he'll be heading to another milestone, which will be running. He celebrated 29 years in power in Soroti, when he talked about the government of the children.
Yeah.
He's racing towards an incredible 35 years in power if he wins the next election. If this fight explodes at a time like this, what exactly is it saying about our politics?
First of all, I don't expect it to explode because the people who have gone social media, with all due respect, are cowards. I mean, the fight was in Nambole, fight was in Chankwazi, the fight was in the series of meetings in State House. If someone did not come out to fight at that point, I don't think social media. Look, this is not a media society. The majority of the people are still relying on face-to-face communication. The president is moving around the country, is meeting his crowds. So I don't think that fight represents a challenge for him.
Yeah,
it represents a challenge for Frank and
yes,
others, but not for the president.
Yeah, but I get you see, we can't ignore social media. Why now? At your level, Napito, you are not the ordinary poor Napito from a Salatapa village in Amuria. You are on Napito at this national level. So Obore comes on Facebook, simply puts there something about Napito, he's a defiler, he's a rapist, he's a thief. If what has been seen about you in Google is on Apito, the corporate affairs director, what will come out first on Apito, a pedophile, which is not true. So you see the impact it has on people's livelihoods, people's honor, and now these old people, whatever they are, or they're old people or young people, are forming gangs. Today, they will gang on Frank. The next day, they'll go for Napito. For as long as you don't speak what they think, you should speak. So it's a kind of dictatorship also. We want free speech, we want our freedoms, we want our expression, but we don't want to hear another person. When someone speaks what we don't want to hear, actually, some of them are actually organized, by the way. It's a syndicate. What's Napito saying today? Let's attack him on social media. Then you find 20 posts all attacking on Napito. So if that continues, it's going to come offline to on to.
Okay.
It's going to come online from online to offline. And that will be very dangerous.
Okay, we just need to take a break, and I'll ask this question so that Morrison can answer it when we come out of the break. Is President Museveni losing the grip of control over the people who serve him? We'll answer that after a short commercial break. We'll be right back. You're still watching The Fourth Estate, and we're discussing intrigues, not actually primarily based within the NRM, but beyond, going right to the center of the palace, which is President Yoweri Museveni's office, the Ministry for the Presidency, and around State House. Ministers being named in a social media fight that hasn't largely broken out in the mainstream media. When you see things like this Morrison coming up, people think, they think in terms of what T.S. Eliot writes. It's the center is failing to hold. And people say President Museveni might appear like this guy who is in control, but actually things are unraveling around him.
No, absolutely not. I can tell you that the presidency is concrete, and what you call the palace it is in order. And I think only last week, because of the rumors around the social media, the ministry made certain clarifications about what is going on in order to dispel, to respond.
I read the clarification
yes,
of, I read the letters, all the letters, the one Frank wrote, the response from the Prime Minister, the statement issued by Muruli Mukasa, who's acting in that position. Actually, he's acting until end of tonight. Yeah. Tomorrow Frank is supposed to be in office.
Yeah, and I can assure you that Honorable Frank Tumwebaze, his leave ends today at midnight. So tomorrow morning he'll be in office. So,
but when you see your senior ministers, everybody tucked in, and Onapito talked about it. This is seen in some quarters as a continuation of the fight that started, that exploded in Chankwanzi in February 2014.
I think nobody can deny that Honorable Frank Tumwebaze has been really at the front line of explaining NRM-related issues, and as a member of parliament and a politician, he has been really a vanguard and an articulate member of the political party. And in those circumstances, I think he has been, part of the shaping of our political, and I think because of the positions he holds, he has a very interesting power base. And like I mentioned, it attracts what Chris would say, what Chris was, bring him down, such that we can also climb. I think our system is very much different from the United States, because there, if you emerge as a very good sports person, for example, the country rallies around you, and then they package you really as the face of America. But what happens here is that when you rise, there is somebody underneath you trying to pull your coat down. So I see elements of really very backward jealousy and all those kind of things.
When you see some of the detail that has emerged, the explanation that I think
and
the one that came out yesterday,
and I need to
the
also
detail
mention
of allegations of actual influence peddling, corruption, fiddling with procurement processes and stuff like that.
Because all that kind of stuff is not decked and anchored in evidence. It is all speculation, and people are trying to piggyback on it in order to soil somebody who they think is doing very well.
Something must be wrong around the palace.
No. And I can also tell you that I think the strategy of some of those groups that wish to see NRM and President Museveni out of power is to really do what they call targeting. You see, if you think that these are some of the individuals that are driving NRM agenda and marketing NRM agenda and running government,
or running the 2016 sole candidate.
You target and say, now let's first remove Charles Mwangusha. If we attack him, an avalanche of attacks for the next 4 months and he's down. Once he's finished, then we attack Onapito. So I see a trend. If you do trends analysis, you actually see that kind of strategy emerging. Once Frank is down, who is next?
Is it a fight against NRM? How can it be a fight against NRM when it is an intra-NRM fight?
No. Because you see...
Or is it about actually...
NRM certainly has leadership. Do you see? So, and within, it is very true that there is just
Chris, can I come to you in a moment? Because Ona was raising something during the break.
You can't be in NRM and fighting NRM leaders.
Is President Yoweri Museveni in charge? When you see these fights the way they're emerging, and people asking the question, they're saying, will he announce a reshuffle or not? What would happen if he announced a reshuffle today? What do you think?
Look, I think President Museveni has used something to the effect that he's a child of conflict. I mean, he doesn't shy away from situations of conflict. And in many cases, when there are people around him appear to be fighting, it only enhances his father status, because he is known that all these people, when he says, Nyamasa, this time to shut up, they will shut up. You know?
So you think he's enjoying this?
So he may not necessarily be enjoying it, but it doesn't mean he's not in control. It only means that the way he has generally structured the NRM, and this really, it's a two-step system whereby they is up there, and then you have this flat flame where everyone is dancing. So nobody feels they can be pushed around by the other. So it's not the first time that those kind of pushing and shoving have existed in NRM. So for me, I don't see anything new.
Chris?
I think that the big problem begins. You know, we are signing President Museveni these omnipotent powers. I think he's
Superman kind of.
29 years is ample evidence of
There are many who have lived beyond 29. Their ending has never been so good. I think we need to be honest with President Museveni. It's not to love him or to hate him. It's just being honest about it. That the president should look at himself as a small entity. Uganda is bigger than him. But if we keep always saying that we know you are this, now the one man becomes more powerful than the 36 million people. He becomes more powerful than Lake Victoria. He becomes more powerful than Mount Rwenzori.
In Teso, you call him Ebala Papa. you keep keeping all these praise names on him.
Telling a man like that, the more he actually believes that he's that powerful. When he's as ordinary like all of us. We have only assigned him a duty to spearhead what is good for the country. And when he doesn't do it well, I think he should be told that this is wrong. But now, if we always shy away and say, this man, he is this. Now for him actually, even what is wrong is good for him. So it is terrible. President Museveni should know part of this problem is actually the conflict between him and his contemporaries. If they fail to resolve their conflicts, it should not affect the Morrison Wakakambas, who believed in the ideology.
I thought the Morrison Wakakambas were the foot soldiers.
No,
yes.
no. First, they
are not just collateral damage, are they?
They were contemporaries of Museveni. The Wakakambas bought into their philosophy and said, we will believe in this old man. Now, if the old men are not able to transition and allow young men and women who followed them to see what ought to have been done, then they are doing this country a disservice. If we are fighting Museveni, because she wanted possibly to be also a leader at a particular time, and has reached you out, it doesn't mean you translate the fight to Rakakamba or to members. These become victims ideologically.
Commanders never get shot on the front line, Chris.
No,
commanders.
We are seeing it differently.
Yes.
What I'm saying, they have a duty to pass on to ideals to the generation of Ugandans. You know, leadership is about affecting people positively is the main priority. You minimize the negative effects. In this case, they are trying to leave bad effects behind for those who believed in them and for even those who didn't believe in them. So let's not assign him that responsibility. But if we come to look at these issues critically now, it is just the politics of collapse of governance. People are seeking to survive. Now in this survival, where the state institutions are not operating, it is he who fights better is the one who survives. So what do? Those in NRM are devouring each other. Because now, why should Morrison Wakakamba, they even say, this one here, who was yesterday this, that's how they talk. Why should he be presidential assistant? Now, while those in opposition are also telling you, for us, Museveni has closed our space for discussion, Museveni is this, but the opposition are actually also looking for blood of those they're accusing. Now, if you have, the other time I talked about, you have a lion in the power, and the hyenas are hovering around. When will he finish the business? Do you expect to see any animal alive in that forest? Not at all. Even the one which would have been injured by the lion will be finished by the hyenas. This is the situation our country is in. That we need, much as we emphasize infrastructure, the Morrisons here propagate infrastructure, dams, hospitals. We agree they're important, but without a backed philosophy, a value system, those things are temporal. The churchless will tell you better. The human being is formed with the spirit, the soul, and the body. Now, if you focus on the body, it will grow fat, it will grow thin. But if there is no spirit, if there is no soul, it's empty. So some of these things Museveni has focused himself. When you hear him talk in public arena, you see a man who is talking like a World Bank consultant. Economy by this, family income by this, relatives are grabbing from widows. You're not addressing that accompanying problem. For you are saying, let there be roads. that road can come down by just one grenade, spoiling it. So a president should be looking at the country wholesomely. So Frank Rakakamba, who else serves him, are going to suffer this.
But there is that other aspect of Biandala. His name has been coming back.
Forget. See, Biandala, I hosted him on KFM one Saturday, and he vowed never to come back. Then again he came. I remember a statement he made. I asked him, when you were a city engineer in Kampala, at that time, Kampala was some slum. Can you prove to me what road have you ever done as an engineer? He told me something from Diamond Trust connecting to Kuruma. I told him it's about 50 meters and a full engineer. You are now a minister. You want to tell me that you now run roads in Uganda when you failed to run roads in Kampala City Council? Somebody said, you man, why are you hard on the man? I told Biandala, look, if you messed up City Council, you're likely to mess up Minister of Works because good works follow you. So when they even talk about, I was asking people, yes, Frank is not God or is not an angel who may not be tempted to make money. But I want to know how 10 billion can be in Frank's account, given the fact that in 2010, when the negotiations began, he had never actually been appointed a minister. He was not a minister. So how does a man who was not a minister, first of all, influence Eto? Because they are saying he was in America, he was everywhere, checking.
He led the team to State House.
At that time, he was not a minister. I asked myself, look here, the facts look well neat, but I think there's propaganda value in these facts. Because if a man was not a minister and was influencing...
You're an investigative journalist. Ugandans are looking on. 24 billion already went down a bottomless hole. No one can tell where the money went. The latest I have seen is actually very interesting. People say Frank Tumwebaze, his wife, his sister-in-law, and a whole string of other people, I have seen Odrek Rabogo's name come in, people around State House, brought Yuto. Then they say in this fight between Museveni and Amama Mbabazi, the Chinese company that is actually has been executing works is a Mbabazi company. And I'm getting lost. I'm saying, so how do these two fundamental opposed individuals, especially in the contest for the leadership within NRM, Amama Mbabazi and President Yoweri Museveni, how do they share spoils of a contract gone so wrong, like the Mukono Katosi Road?
First of all, that shows that government has been running on deals. It clearly tells you that government has been running on deals. Now, it is the losing side that wants to take the victim approach and now expose those they think have taken over. So it's now like a lion fighting with a leopard. You, a human being, should not even be near them because none of them can spare your life anyway. So, but the Katosi thing has been a lot of propaganda and facts. And all that coming out of lack of transparency, how government runs. If IGG is working, if police is working, why haven't IGG called to Mwebazi? If I told he took the money.
Or maybe they're still investigating.
Why hasn't Akulo called to Mwebazi? If I told he's involved.
She's still investigating.
But Biandala, police declared him a prime suspect. Are we saying, I've not talked to Akulo yet, I meant to talk to Eri Milagonja. She's a very honest woman, though the way she does her things. Why have they called Biandala and they've not called Frank Tumwebazi? So if it is true that it's propaganda, let's allow some, even if the institutions are dead, let's allow police to come up with their report and challenge their report. But now to bring another means either Biandala does not want to go alone. He wants to go with very many. And which is dangerous for our country. People don't have the ongoing zone in government. And now when they go to social media and get propaganda, people will get charged on falsehoods. Okay. And that's very dangerous.
Morrison,
yes.
Ugandans watching you and watching the president make all these grand pronouncements about infrastructure investment are wondering, 24 billion has already gone down a drain. People have been adding up. There is a very interesting magazine, news magazine called Black Monday.
Yeah.
And they've been doing these tallies, and they will be coming out tomorrow again. They've been doing these tallies of money that the government, the Ugandan citizen has lost in shady deals. Now, when the discussion descends to this infighting between two ministers, some are attaching it to the Soul Candidature project, others are Mama's ambitions, others the eating and what Chris has rightly called the dealing, the deal-making process of running government. The investigation is getting lost along the way. And it turns back to where you work, the man you serve, as a public servant, the president's office and accountability for the money that's been lost.
Absolutely
And,
not.
and that's getting lost in this,
No,
this mess.
no, I think you're not getting it correctly. Because we must appreciate that when things go wrong, you know, is there action, you know, being taken? And like Chris was saying, the police and the IGGs are trying to get to really the root of this matter. And if things went wrong, really, money was lost. Did you see? That is a fact. And now the police and other branches, investigative branches of government, are into that. And I think, and I must thank the media really for most of these things, because, you know, having developed, you know, an investigative media, most of these deals that go wrong really are brought on the table. And where is the media getting information? It's from whistleblowers, you know, and all these people. And looking at this, even this Katosi thing that they talk about, I think I read Minister Biandara's interview in Observer, where he was saying that it is Honorable Frank Tumwebaze taking stories to New Vision. And I was reading, and I mean, Frank Tumwebaze appears like a whistleblower, according to that Biandara's statement. But, you know, over and above all this, there should be content. If you want information on what is going on, and you want to post something on Facebook or write a story, you know, Akuro, the head of CID.
Let's not lose the let's not lose the trail of the discussion.
No, because you see,
Morrison,
we are running an open government.
Is this
where public information should be available?
Is this last week's?
Instead of speculation?
Is last week's explosion?
Yes.
A deliberate strategy within government and especially around the presidency to blow wide open any investigation into Mukono Katosi?
Not necessarily. I think it has been...
narrowing it to a fight between two individuals.
What we have been seeing is really speculation. And I think my own thinking is that it is really decked in the politics. It is decked in the power games. And what you can see is real targeting and spoiling name of what we do believe are a very successful politician.
We have like a minute to take the break.
Honestly, here, Charles. Let's assume even if Frank had 10 billion in his account. You should think beyond now, Frank having that money. What are the implications for this economy, the banking sector? What is Bank of Uganda saying about it? We have the Finance Intelligence Unit created recently. How can 10 billion be in somebody's account in this country? And the Governor Bank of Uganda is quiet.
I thought Ugandans are fabulously wealthy. They couldn't be having the money.
How can that money come to one account? If it came to a Boris account, even 50 million, I think Shady would win my case. Now here is 10 billion. Support in an account, and Bank of Uganda governor does not quite how it came. That means the money is beyond Frank alone. Okay. It must have been involving finance, banking sector, and everyone else.
Ona, can you drink from your wide wealth of as a journalist? You ran a newspaper once. You have taught journalism.
I wish I was.
Where is the media missing this story? Or what? For the journalists watching us and the media houses watching us now, I mean the other media operatives watching us now. How do you approach this? It looks like a very sweet story. If you look at the writing on social media, the detail being provided, and how it flows, you think, I have a beautiful story to follow here.
Well, I think we all know that right now the Ugandan media is not spared from the money games that have beset all these debates. So, I mean, money can do anything. So, the journalists, I'm sure, are not, with all due respect, daring enough to really go into the depth of the matter.
Let me change my question.
Even if they are daring.
Let me change my question. Please. Is there a story?
Look, I don't think, unfortunately, Ugandans have become cynical towards all these big corruption stories. So even from a purely selling story, I don't think this is a story that sells.
Okay.
We have seen it all.
I know we didn't take the story. Let me ask the guy who's been an editor or until very recently, Chris Obore. Are these useful tips?
Very useful tips, but what kind of story do you get?
Let's take a break. We'll pick it up after short commercial break.
That's the point, you know?
I must confess that the discussion we're having tonight is a very difficult subject to discuss and break it apart. And I hope tomorrow no one wakes up and begins saying, you see, the way Chris Obore was arguing, you know, the way this, especially how this story has gone. Let me go back the question to you, Anapito.
Yes.
Your experience in the newsroom as a journalism trainer, where is the story in all this?
I struggle to find a story in all this. Again, the road issue has been debated to the death, so I don't think raising it makes any new. The conflict between Frank and the alleged conflict between Frank and the engineer Biandala is also not.
It's no longer an alleged conflict. Biandala
Okay,
spoke about it in his interview with Observer, and Frank responded.
I think the only story here, in my view, is that after Chamkwanzi, there are people who have realized that creating enemies for the president is not a very futile industry, you know? And I think some people are seen to have benefited from spearheading the identifying and exposing of Mbabas as someone who is not working for the interests of the NRM. And I'm sure there will be an attempt to keep on getting more people to say this one is a problem as we build towards 2016. It keeps you in relevant. So there are people who have specialized in that now. They will try to create real and imagined problem cases for the president.
Chris, I've actually been told that in this battle, especially over who runs as a flag bearer for the NRM in 2016 and not, there's been an effort of trying to group people who belongs to which camp. And some people have tried to use the strategy of selling other people, claiming this one actually belongs to the other camp, belongs to my camp. He doesn't. He might appear with you, but he belongs to my camp. The thing, which car are you driving in? Are you moving in? As you talked about. So I was told that one of the discussions, if you saw one of the posts on social media, was that Frank has been mobilizing against Muhoozi Kainerugaba. That also came out sometime.
For me,
yes.
Even to post that would be a sign of.
Can I just finish this? I'm told that one time, one camp went to, I think, Rwachitora and said, you know, you think this guy belongs to you. He actually belongs to our camp. And someone had smuggled photographs to the First Lady to show that who belongs where. And it becomes a very complex discussion. But Chris, we lost money. 500 billion invested in Chagam in 2007. No proper investigation. The investigations were done, but no money was refunded. Money lost. Every corruption scandal just adds to the pile of money Ugandans have lost. No proper investigation, no conclusion gets undertaken. So Mukono Katosi will blow over. The last, I think, UNRWA was signing a new contract with a new company, and the bill had jumped from 150 million to 250 something million, 243, somewhere around there. The bill is just growing. The cost to the Ugandan taxpayer is increasing. The infrastructure development that we're talking about, one, we are not building to last. We are not building within cost. We are not building on time. And the long-term effect of that is immense.
Don't provoke me into a very long discussion on these matters, because what we are discussing is the politics, not the corruption. Thank God I broke the pension scandal in this country. There are people who have died without any money. No one talks about pension scandal in this country today. 360 billion. But the 10 billion in the air taken by Tumevas is everywhere. Thank God I broke the OPM scandal in 2010. Not even the parliament bothered until the politics of OPM became politics. Then people began saying, oh, there is this. So what am I trying to say? Even those agencies you see, people are posted those agencies as conduits for the political class to make money. So those agencies are battlegrounds. People working there as professionals are more in agony than we even imagine. So when the politics fails, is when you're beginning to see this. And as I'm saying, that's a raw deal for this country. We must fight corruption. We must attack anybody who's corrupt. But we must not allow keep politicking to derail us. Because then the nation begins to reason on the falsehoods. And that is a very dangerous country. And the media cannot do much now, because the media gets captured by the same kind of interest that Napito is talking about. So what do? You can never get a chance to know whether Napito can be a leader or not. Because when he rises today as a leader, There are
Shut
people
down.
planning to shoot him down. Now, those whose work is to shoot them down, what do they want? I have a proverb in Iteso. You know, we have 5 fingers in our hands. But there are people who are so courageous. There is blood in everything except one. But they still want to eat and they think they are eating clean food. That's what's happening today. You want to eat with 1 finger, but all here is blood. So that kind of level is where we are reaching. That we no longer care what are we eating. Are we eating somebody's blood or not? So if we reach that level as a country, and that should be the constant President Museveni, is a factor in this. He's responsible. I pity guys who keep insulating him. How do you build a body politic where people are hero worshipping, they kneel it down, the youth come to you because you fear elections, you quite give them money, they run away, go to another car, and you're tolerating that as a president. You have all the instruments to bring order. The state is legitimately has instruments of coercion. They must be applied where necessary. But he allows them to happen like that. They're asking about the reports. Who should ask the report? It's the president. The reports are not there.
Morrison Wakakamba writes the report.
So you
should
find
ask him what report
Wakakamba
he's
as you
writing.
come in here. The NRM, as you see today, Charles, is built on personal militias. You find every NRM man has got his militia. They first of all survived by squeezing everything from the country. Now they have it. They all feel they can be leaders. That's the problem for NRM.
So the militia is social media now.
Everybody in NRM thinks they can be president, they can be MP, I can be chairman, because they have ill-gotten money. What do? They build cells of desperate young men and women. 50,000, 100,000, go and do this, go and do that. That is a bigger threat to Uganda than anything else. This is militia. And you find the Morton Wakakambas who are supposed to steer that debate, also behaving like the young of a goat learning to run around, jumping like blindly. You know, when you jump blindly as a young kitten, you look beautiful, but you can be knocked by a zebra easily. That's why you are falling prey. You are jumping around, innocent kittens around, jumping here, run there, running here. Then you find like a small leopard watching this kind of thing running. It kills you very quickly because your father has not been able to tame leopards around him because he believes he's the lion. And that's a dangerous thing.
Morrison, let me ask a very basic question.
Yeah.
What is going on?
I think
Does he believe the lion or is actually the lion?
I think in these matters, I think Chris is being very unfair to me. I've been a lion because I think I've raised the debate to public policy. To high level public policy. And one of the things we've been discussing, I think, in the few weeks is the pension sector and also water resources in the country. So those are very serious matters, Chris. It is not about running
So,
around.
in your words, Morrison,
yes.
what is going on around this whole saga?
No, I can say I actually do agree with Chris that it has nothing to do with corruption tendencies. It's actually very much on politics, and so they are using some groups are using tagging and throwing rotten eggs and creating corruption scandals as a pathway in order to eliminate certain perceived political opponents or to weaken certain political power bases. And I think that's a problem.
Hold it. With a known character of pilferage of public resources that the NRM government has been known for over the last 29 years, you cannot dismiss this story as just a targeting a character.
No, it really is,
there
because
is something more.
discussing broadly corruption is really a societal issue. It has no color. It's not about one political party or the other. It is a number of individuals across
when it escalates
within our society.
When it escalates on the watch.
No.
When it escalates on the watch of the government you serve. No. When it explodes on the watch of the government you serve, you cannot just dismiss it.
This is an issue of various systems that all leaders, whether in churches, whether in cultural institutions, whether in companies, must engage with. Do you see? So it's not really an exclusive issue tagged to any political party or any political group. So as a country, as a country, we must continue the conversation. And I think most of these scandals come up because NRM itself exposes them. Did you see? And maybe before there was no apparatus to expose these things, they would even go unnoticed, and therefore they would not be debated. The fact that we have Black Monday trying to illuminate all these corruption scandals and demanding action and access ferment of information across the country, for me that is extremely very important. Really, Frank May was wrote a major paper, you know, directing RDCs on how to tackle corruption in districts. Because there are really a problem in districts. I think you've looked at the scorecard. And really directing RDCs to begin monitoring service delivery, do value on-spot audits to make sure that if money is sent to schools, it reaches, to make sure that if farmers are supposed to receive certain inputs, they receive them. And whenever Frank Tumwe was, by the way, when he was still a member of parliament, he's the one who really, he was a vanguard and the one who did spearhead the anti-money laundering bill when he was chairperson.
There's a unit now. I think it's headed by Sidna Subo.
Yes. So you can see that, I mean, he has really been in the struggle. And in these NRM things,
so I mean, what service delivery do RDCs monitor when the money is being stolen in Kampala?
Their mandate is constitutional. They are supposed to really be the eyes and the ears of the
money is being swindled in Kampala. It's not being swindled in the district.
It's really everywhere. I am saying that corruption is a problem.
Okay.
And nobody is saying that there is no corruption. At the district level, in villages, in churches, there are all these problems. So it's a value systems issue. And all of us, including journalists, you have done a great job. You have been in court trying to make sure that we illuminate and bring out all these oil-related...
yes, the PSS. The government frustrated my effort.
I mean, but I'm saying that everybody tries to do something to make sure that we develop this country, we have a non-corrupt society.
Using your insider access, Ona said you are the guy now there.
Of course,
he's no longer serving there. What should we expect in the next week? And don't talk about Frank returning to office tomorrow, because I know he will. If he returns to office tomorrow, how does this conflict get resolved? Is President Museveni or the Prime Minister going to call these guys, put them in a room
There is no conflict. There is no conflict. I think presidency, through the current hold of the portfolio, Honorable Wilson Murumukasa, made a statement that was very clear, that was sent to the press. The presidency will continue doing things that are on schedule. We expect that in the next month we'll have again our MPs going to Chankwanzi to deliberate on public policy and see, to even debate appropriations in parliament and how to have a budget that can work for people. So all these issues are going to continue. And
you're keeping members of parliament in meetings and delaying the process of passing electoral reform laws, and so they'll spend another week.
But you see, they are not sleeping and shooting guns. They're actually deliberating on public policy and agreeing on certain positions. And I expect that even issues related with electoral reforms and perfecting our democracy are going to be debated.
You're just trying to keep them busy and
of course the other point.
So that we just arrive at election time and we're not prepared.
No, not at all. But you realize that we used it to vote, you know, in this queuing.
Charles, I think let me help Maurice. Might recommend my
re-entry to State House.
Look, I think for the group that the president has rightly described as the government of the children, the challenge for them now is how to develop what you may call a sense of decorum. Unfortunately, they are serving at a time when Ndugu Rugunda is the prime minister, or they are at the center of leadership. He's one person who is seen to have taken a lot of credit across regimes, you may say, since the UPC days, for being someone who is respected. Regardless of the position is supported.
He doesn't engage in what Morrison, I think
there has been a tendency to really try to outdo yourself amongst a lot of young political activists. And in the process, you may lose some respect. You know, people can admire you even if you have a high office. If, you know, politics is essentially acting. So you can act to respect someone whom you might not actually respect. And President Museveni, to his credit, has a mix of that. He can be tough, but he can also appear to lower himself to the point that he disarms his opponents.
So you think some of the children are getting excited?
No, I'm saying...
by their position?
I mean, there is a tendency across the political spectrum, both in the opposition and in NRM, of the young activists sometimes who want to outdo everyone, and especially if people are actually feeling you have been parachuted. You know, you just respect people and do your work. I mean, be composed. Sometimes I think we need a bit of tutoring in terms of approach to relating with, especially those who are older than you, who are younger than you. You can have a mix of
But
toughness.
the other point maybe on Peter, I may need to add.
No, I'm talking about general.
I do agree.
Even this play in the social media.
I do agree.
I know social media is
just
considered hip and what have you, but I think as a politician, you have to be careful how you.
I just wanted to make a
quick
point. That even these politicians who are, being, framed or juxtaposed to be overzealous and maybe arrogant, these are people who are winning elections in their own constituency. So we shouldn't abuse ingenuity of people who actually elect them. They may have a different style of leadership, which should also be respected and appreciated. And I think for some of these people who have been branded overzealous, I think they are actually decisive and they make things happen because they make hard decisions.
Well, I want to introduce this. You had a sense of this. Yes.
We're not against that, but I think on Monday, I was in Mbala. I slept at Ocean Wheels Hotel. You can say the best hotel in Mbala now. And Rugunda had a meeting there with some of his ministers. But what I witnessed was that there was ease. I could see ease from the civil servants. I saw one of the guys in OPM who's teaching me public policy. People were doing their work. So I think Uganda lacks consensus brokers. But in Rugunda, we may have a consensus broker that we have never exploited very well. I'm told during the previous time, you'd see a prime minister, wherever he is, there is fear around, even on the road. Even the grasshoppers tend to run away. But I was there with the
grasshoppers.
Life was moving on. He was moving his life. I mean, it's just normal. Even the workers, just normal. So if we get kind of personalities,
the talk of every politician, old or young, poor or rich, is something called ego. You must recognize that everyone has an ego. And if you have the capacity to massage egos and let egos play out within reasonable limits, you really can get people.
When you eliminate the fear, if you try to crush people's egos,
let me conclude this point. As you conclude, because I wanted you to add this as you conclude. And the second thing, Chris, is, one, respond to this. If Rugunda, he's the head prefect of ministers, when he calls a cabinet meeting, I would imagine Frank and Biandala would want to box each other in the cabinet. And those sparks have always been there within the cabinet. Is he going to call them and settle these matters between the two of them? And number two, I need your prediction on what, how this matter will be resolved. How does it conclude?
First of all, I'm not interacting with Rugunda on person to person. I'm just analyzing him based on the information I get. And this one, I was just an eyewitness in a hotel, and I could see freedom. Even me, if I'm an employee under Rugunda, I think I can be more creative when I have that feeling that someone listens to me than when you see all around, you see pomp, you see there are others who want to destroy you. So I'm giving him credit for that. And maybe as a country, we must begin propping up such people more, so that we begin to learn everybody. The trouble with NRM
provides
is
they don't get ideas.
But Rugunda has been around. Rugunda has been around for a long time. And I think one of his strengths is not to look at being president as the only source of leadership. Leadership comes in very many categories. I think that's okay. It should be applauded.
Okay, if you could just
now, the point is, NRM has made leadership so cheap, that anybody, it's okay for people to come and want to be leaders. But there should be a bar, there should be a quality. That for you to lead us, this is the quality. So NRM has bastardized it that anybody, as long as you steal 1 million, 200 million, and you can buy villagers, you also become a leader. That's a disservice that NRM should go and look at. The point you are raising, how will it be resolved? It's going to be difficult to resolve. Why? Even the bureaucracy. After Kazinda, there was fear among the bureaucracy. Today, the bureaucracy is back. They are just eating as normal. The only way this will be resolved will be from a cabinet reshuffle.
You think a cabinet reshuffle is coming?
It will resolve some of this, but it is going to continue with Mbabazi's announcement that I want to stand. Ultimately, the resolution will be who will be defeated in 2016. Okay. The one who will be defeated will forever shut up.
Morrison, how does this get resolved? What is your own prediction of this?
No, like I mentioned, this is open government, and conversations will continue. The most important thing
open government refused to give me PSAs. And you're talking about open government.
No, it's still open government. It's because of other laws that are outside because
laws it created.
Oil is a very much an international
laws it created.
Resource.
No, just make your prediction.
But the prediction is that really it's not going to be business as usual. There's going to be more intensity, especially that people are adjusting towards 2016. And I think also the desire to make sure that public services reach real people in real time. is going to happen. So the focus of government will continue deliver about to be will be
You
about
think Rugunda
delivering
is going to
public
call
services.
his 2 ministers and
No, I mean,
give them some tongue
you
lashing?
know, I like, Right Honorable Ndugu Rugunda, and his management style is fantastic, and he chairs cabinet.
Okay.
So ministers will continue the
Our time is
conversation.
out.
They are colleagues.
Our time is out. Honor, your last word on this.
Look, political fights are generally considered the height of democracy if they are civil. So I don't mind civil political fights. I only hope our politicians, especially there's this worry of post-Museveni, who is currently in control. People think if you have those kind of squabblings, then you go back to the 60s where things fall apart. But let's have those quarrels, but let there be civility. And if they are not bringing the army
Gentlemen,
and what have you,
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Let me
No,
only
no, no.
tell
Thank
the
you very
worst place you should ever want to work is State House. It's the breeding place.
Thank
for
you very
intrigue.
much. Honor Peter
I'm
survived
going to be
it.
surprised that even members is having intrigue right from State
Honor
House.
Peter survived. Yes, there is that disease called being too close, being seen as too powerful, and the power can be too close to the president. Thank you very much to you, all our viewers, and this debate will continue next Sunday, right here on NTV and on the Fourth Estate. Have a good night.